is Coca Treviño. I'm program manager at Big Medium. Thank you for coming to today's coffee chat. As you may know, this program features leaders in the creative community, sharing their personal and professional experiences to inspire others pursuing careers in art. Today, we have independent curator and the current chair of the Arts Commission for City of Austin, District 2, Jaime Salvador Castillo, and arts administrator, artist, writer, consultant, you name it, Chale Nafus. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Happy to be here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we are excited about talking to y'all, but we figured your chat sounds way more interesting, so I'll let you guys do it. And thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat them, but they will be addressed until the end of the conversation. So just keep your notes and use the chat or Q&A if you have any questions for our guests. Thank you.
Thanks. This is a conversation that has been years in the making. We finally get to do this for a straight hour. We've only talked in snippets at different exhibits and all, so I'm really happy that you invited me to do this. Do you prefer Jaime or Salvador? Salvador is such a great name.
Thanks. Yeah. If we meet in person, I'm going to introduce myself as Jaime, and you can call me Jaime.
Yes.
Salvador. I mean, I think we'll get into it. But Salvador was my pen name, my nom de plume when I was writing criticism, and I used to keep it separate. I used to keep the criticism and the curatorial work under Salvador.
Okay.
And if you met me in person and my artwork, I would have Jaime attached to that. And then just a few years ago, I was like, this thing is so old and I'm confusing people. So I just started using my full name so people understood it's like it's the same person.
Right.
And I've been doing all the work. It's so.
Okay, good. I like that explanation. I wasn't sure what you were going to say. I think you should have actually added a del, so Salvador del Castillo, the savior of the castle. And your email has something like that in it, saving the castle.
Yeah. I like to play with that type of literary I don't know, flourish.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, I always like to go back to each person's beginning. So let's go back to Chicago, your childhood. Were you into art then? When did you first start manifesting an interest in art?
Comic books. I clearly remember my brother getting, Spider-Man comic books and X-Men comic books. And maybe even before kindergarten, I was drawing, trying to draw the Wolverine's mask. I have clear memories of sitting at the table and drawing that shape. So yeah, the interest has always been there in terms of and interrelated with comic books and cartoons. I grew up in the 80s, so
Right.
He-Man and Transformers and G.I. Joe and Thundercats and all those 80s cartoons. That was my life.
Okay, very good. That world has intersected my world of film. So, and I'm not that literate with the comic side of it. So I keep learning. Did your family, your relatives, did they encourage the drawing?
Yeah, I think later on as I got into like middle school age, preteens, teens, where I was still, spending my time drawing, collecting comic books. Like my mom supported my taking art classes. There was an organization in Chicago called the Marwin Foundation, and they started doing art projects in public schools around the city. And they came one year to my school and invited me to work on mask making project.
Oh.
And then at the conclusion of that, they invited participants to come to their location and take classes out of their location, which I did. I was excited to do that, and yeah, my parents supported that. So I went to Marwin like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Doing art classes there.
You eventually went back a number of years later to curate a show or to judge a show.
Yeah. After I mean, we're jumping ahead on the timeline, but
We are.
yeah, after
Okay. We can
after,
wait.
well, I'll just briefly say, like, yeah,
Okay.
after I graduated from UT, I reconnected with them just to see how they were doing, and I realized how integral they were in terms of my art interest and my art career. It's like
Right.
I wanted to find a way to sort of give back, and so I reconnected with them, and yeah, they invited me to curate a show.
Excellent. Okay. We'll get into the contents of that later. Did you have encouraging teachers in school, not just at Marwin, but in your public school?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I got nominated by my art teacher to participate in that workshop. So there was that. I remember there was the computer lab teacher, Mr. Malecki. He wasn't, I guess he wasn't an official teacher, but it was an after school program and working on computers. And he was supportive. I clearly remember my English teacher in 8th grade, Mr. Taylor. Yeah, when I was not as interested in participating in the science fair, he was okay with as long as I was still doing the creative writing that I was doing. He was like,
Okay.
and in fact, he introduced me to Asimov and all the sci-fi. Like it was funny seeing him as a like realizing that my teacher was a nerd.
Oh, okay.
Because he was so into Star Trek and
Oh,
was talking about Apple computers and just like
wow.
was just like, wow, like yeah. And he had iRobot on his desk, and he's
Oh,
like that got my curiosity. I was like, wait, what is this about? So I read a bunch of Asimov
all
in middle
right.
school.
Very
Yeah.
good. Great. Well, you show up in Austin in your CV as early as 96, participating in La Peña's Toma Mi Corazón exhibit, and their annual exhibit, and then the Young Latino Artists at Mexicarte. Were you already living here in 96?
Yeah, so so my family moved down here in
Oh,
'94,
okay.
and I started high school here. I did my 4 years of high school at Travis High, right, Old on I-35. And so my high school teacher, actually, Ana Salinas, who was the co-owner of the El Sol y la Luna restaurant,
Right.
she introduced me to La Peña and to Mexicarte,
Great.
and encouraged me to participate in La Peña's exhibition and fundraiser. And then when Sylvia brought up the idea of young Latino artists at Mexicarte, yeah, she was looking for young artists, and she connected with Ana Salinas, and she identified some folks that were in the art classes, and I was one of them, and I was able to participate for those first 2 years for for YLA.
Very good. Excellent. That's been kind of a launching pad for many, many artists in Texas, I think.
Yeah.
I miss having the cafe to go to see the exhibit. But are they still doing it at La Peña, at their place on the corner in Congress?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. And Toma Mi Corazón is always February, isn't it? So I guess they
Right.
did it this year. Okay. All right. You had some solo exhibitions much later, 2004, 2005, while you were at UT getting your BFA. What were those solo exhibitions like?
Yeah, so those were just wrapping up, actually, my time at UT.
Right.
Probably the earlier ones were probably just like my final. We didn't do theses at UT, but like just like my final projects
Okay.
for the year. I did like 2 or 3, a series of like 3 exhibitions on campus. I had signed up for use of the student gallery, and had coordinated a project in the hallways, and then I had also for for my installation class, I did a final project at my house where I wrapped my house in plastic, a la Christo and Jean-Claude.
Right.
And yeah, so those all sort of happened within the same like month, 2 month time period. And then I also got invited back by Mexicarte to, actually, I guess that wasn't a solo show,
Okay.
but I got invited back by Mexicarte to be part of YLA again.
All right. Very good. Well, let's describe some of your artwork at the time. You mentioned installations. Describe, besides the Cristo inspired one, what other sorts of things did you do?
A lot of drawing,
Hmm.
and then that led to like a printmaking.
Oh,
But yeah, I was not that I was dissatisfied, but I didn't know where to take my drawing, so I was starting to play with installations, and so the way that my drawings took up space was things that I was playing with, and then even in the Cristo Ten Piedad, which was the title of the Cristo inspired work, I had some prints on the plastic itself outside of, you know, surrounding on the exterior of the wrapped house.
okay. I hope you can send me some images of that. I would love to see it.
Yeah, actually, I wonder.
I don't mean right now. I mean,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay. Was anybody else living in the house that you wrapped?
Yeah, actually, my whole family, my
Oh,
wife and my three young daughters.
oh my. And
And
how did you convince them that was okay?
I told them it's for grade, it's for school. I have to.
Okay, very good. We should bring them out and let them comment on it. Okay,
You might
after,
steal the show. I
yeah.
don't know.
So graduated in 2005, and we're going to discuss those outsiders in a minute. But in the meantime, besides group exhibitions and solo, you were writing for the Austin Chronicle, Can Tanker, Might Be Good, some of the other Austin-based publications and all. Were you doing reviews, or what were you doing?
Yeah, mostly reviews. So when I graduated in 2005, in that last year at UT, I befriended a lot of the grad students. Actually, I was going to say that my time at UT, the year that I graduated, there seemed to be a cohort of like slightly older students,
Hmm.
either students that had taken gap years and had come back,
Mhm.
a couple years later, or students that just were older and had come back to school.
Oh,
Um, and so I found that interesting because, of course, I had kids at the time, so
hmm.
I took note of that, right? It's like there's a maturity to some of these my colleagues, that my peers, that I saw the distinct difference between the other students.
Hmm.
And so I feel like I befriended the grad students because they were older, and they just, I felt more comfortable, and the sculpture area lent itself towards that collaboration and towards just relying on others for helping them to do work. So it was just that more open environment in the sculpture area. Not to say that the painters weren't friendly, just sculpture
Right.
was more
Okay.
open.
All right.
Um, so I graduated in 2005, and I'm going to art openings, and I'm seeing, um, these grad students, folks that I consider, friends and acquaintances, are having their artwork shown, and uh, I was going to a lot of the openings, and there was an event at the Austin Museum of Art. They had a symposium related to their it was 20 to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember, well, actually, I wasn't able to attend, but I read the review where Mark Smith, who was at Flatbed Press at the time, was quoted as saying that Austin had grown to the point where there was enough artists in town that there should be appropriate level of criticism to meet that you know, that level of creation that's happening in town. Um, and I thought that was interesting. And at the time, I was considering going to grad school. And you know, January rolls around, which was like 3 or 4 months after that event. And I didn't really see an uptick in writing, and so, or in criticism. And so I thought, why not take this opportunity um, to try to improve my writing, to prepare for grad school, but then also add to the conversation, add to that criticism that was identified as lacking. And so I started a blog, actually, about what I sees. And I wrote that for a few months, caught the eye of the editor at the Chronicle, caught the eye of some folks in town, and yeah, I started getting invited to write for the publications that you listed, and yeah, there was all criticism. I think I attempted a feature or two, but really my niche was criticism.
Okay, excellent. Los Outsiders. They still exist. They're doing a show at Grey Duck right now. You were associated with them from the beginning until 2015, I think it said. Michael Anthony Garcia, Hector Hernandez, and you. Had they been in school with you, or did you meet them elsewhere? No.
No, so Michael, Hector, and we met because of that YLA at Mexicarte that I was invited to after I graduated from UT. We all happened to be in that same year. Yeah, that YLA opened, the show happened, it traveled to Corpus. You know, we went out to Corpus, we hung out, and they actually, Michael and Hector invited me to hang out, and talk about art.
Yeah, all right.
So, and that's how it happened. It was just, we wanted to hang out and talk art, and it became a thing.
All
We
right.
became Los Outsiders.
Okay, and why that name, Los Outsiders?
Um, we it was we were looking at the character of Austin, and it just seemed, and it sort of continues today, but it just, at the time, it seemed like you either were part of the in crowd or you weren't.
Right.
And the in crowd being having some sort of relationship to UT, as opposed to other artists that either were self-taught or were coming from other towns. But if you were coming out of UT, more than likely you were getting opportunities. And if not, it was a little bit harder for you. So we noticed that, and even though I did come out of the UT program, I identified with it, right? Like all through my younger years of reading comic books and watching cartoons and being nerdy in school, like I identified with the underdog and with the outsider, and so that's where it came from. And then this is funny because we came up with Los Outsiders as our name, where Michael and Hector were thinking about a song by Café Tacuba. I was thinking of the movie The Outsiders.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
And so for a good number of years, like that, in my head, it was like, oh, we decided on Outsiders because it's, you know, that movie with the all-star cast of, you know, unknowns that became superstars.
Right.
But they were thinking about that song.
I see. But that's appropriate then, because you have Spanish Los and then Outsiders. So I can see that house in Tulsa of the Outsiders is now a museum. I was thinking, damn, I want to go there. I want to see it. Even for my age, Outsiders, the movie was a very significant film. So what became the mission of Los Outsiders?
I think it slowly evolved. When we first got together, it was about, you know, finding exhibition opportunities for us, because at the time I was making artwork and I was, you know, trying to be an artist. Even though I had already started my criticism and other curatorial work, but we were looking for opportunities for ourselves, and I think the way we started curating, just our first real big opportunity came from Mexico, actually, from Nuevo Laredo. Hector got invited to do a solo show. He saw the space, it was huge, and he's like, let's do a group show. Michael and I joined him on a trip, or we found out about the space, and it's like, it was a 10,000 square, is it 10,000 or 20,000 square foot? I mean, it was huge. It was the old
Customs house, La Aduana.
La Aduana, yeah, it was the old
like customs house.
customs house, yeah.
Right.
So we're like, there's no way the three of us can fill this space. So let's invite a bunch of other artists, and let's invite installation artists so that they can actually fill the space.
Okay.
And I think that's just started slowly evolving our mission of finding opportunities, not just for us, but for other artists, and help other artists, get those opportunities that aren't always readily available for young artists, for emerging artists.
Very good. One of the exhibits that you did was Gently Fried at the MAC, the Mexican American Cultural Center. Can you discuss what that was like?
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. The team, the group had already done a show at the MAC, and I was not available to work on that one. But they had a good show there, got accolades for it, and so the MAC invited us back. I think, I'm trying to think, because this may have been around the time that I introduced Robert Jackson Harrington to the group. I was trying to get him in, sort of as my replacement. And so anyway, so we have this opportunity, and we were trying to figure out, like, what is it that we can do that would not only provide opportunities for emerging artists, but also take advantage of the site, right? What the MAC is, what it stands for, and how what we're doing with it. And at the time, the talks about gentrification were ramping up. And I thought it was a good opportunity. It's like, how I asked the guys, it's like, how do we talk about this topic without preaching to the audience, and really get people to question it and think about it. And I think we were able to pull in artists that did that for us, where where the artist's work was talking about growth, talking about change, but it wasn't specific to Austin, right? Because I at this time I had already been looking at other comparably sized cities in the US, and trying to look at how their art communities were dealing with the issues, and trying to see what Austin was missing, what Austin had above others, because Austin was already, a growing star in terms of a favorite place for everybody, right? South by was booming, filmmaking was still happening here. Music, of course, has always been a thing. So I was always comparing Austin to other cities to try to figure out what is that secret ingredient that makes Austin special. And seeing gentrification as this issue, as this problem in Austin, but not wanting to preach, like that's where the artists came in. Like, that they were talking about the same things, just it wasn't framed in that way. It was a little bit more open, so people could come in. And I remember one of the main reviews that we got identified at Claire Ashley, a Chicago-based artist. She does inflatable sculptures, and she came down and did a performance. Had I'm trying to remember. I think it's like 8 people, 8 to 10, had to have been 8 people inside the inflatable sculpture making it dance.
Oh, wow.
And we had identified a smaller inflatable sculpture to go in the gallery. But when I saw this thing, I was just like, and you've seen the space in the Mac, right? It's got tall ceilings. I was looking at this thing as it was dancing. I was like, what if that thing was in the gallery?
Ah,
And so when the performance was over and she's starting to pack up, I asked the guys, I'm like, what if we put this one in the gallery instead of that smaller one? That small one's going to get swallowed up.
mm,
And they agreed, and we asked Claire, and she's like, sure, it should fit. And we put it in there, and it barely fits. Like it went
wow.
really
That's
tall,
fun.
and
Yeah.
it worked perfect. And then in the review they were saying it was like this looming sculpture, just like sort of a stand-in for these new high rises that were going up in downtown Austin. It's like it almost doesn't fit,
Mhm.
but it's there, and it's part of our skyline now. It's part of our community now.
Right.
So like just that tension of like it doesn't quite fit, but it's here now. So how do we deal with it? Um, so yeah, I'm actually really proud about Gently Fried and how that came down, and or how we accomplished that. It was, yeah.
Okay. So much of that, of what you've described, really, I think, naturally led to your position on the Art in Public Places panel starting in 2009. And tell us about that experience. I mean, that panel still exists, right?
Yeah,
Art,
that's a
yeah,
city panel, yeah.
right. Okay. So what was that experience like?
Um, so it's funny because the time, like it in my mind, all these things happen at the same time.
Well, right, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a Virgo and I always put things into chronological things. So of course, a lot of this you were doing at the same time.
Yeah, no, and I only point that out because it was just an extension of my criticism. Like I an opening for AIPP happened, and I was interested, and I was interested in a, not braggadocious, that's not the right word. Um, but I was like, I took a look at the public art that the city has, and I wasn't satisfied with it. I'm like, come on, we can do better than this.
Good.
And so I went to apply to improve our city's collection.
Right. Excellent.
I was conceited. I was, it was,
I'm very glad. I'm glad you felt that way.
um, and it was funny because I applied for that. They selected someone else that first time I applied, and then another opening came up, and I was contacted by the administrator and say, hey, there's another opening. Do you want to apply again? And so I did apply again, and I was able to serve on AIPP. I did that for 6 years. And again, it was like I said, it was an extension of my criticism. And I did go in sort of like, I'm gonna fix this thing. But there's so much in terms of process, in terms of parameters and guidelines that have to happen, that rules that have to be followed, that influence the ultimate outcome of the public art that we receive. So it was a big learning experience for me, and I hope that I can communicate that out to the rest of the communities, that that there's a lot that goes into it. And so and again, like it's the city's thing, but I'm also proud in terms of some of the things that they've done, right? The Tempo program, some of the mentorship program where they connect, they commission an artist to do a big project, but then they have some money set aside to commission sort of a not an intern, but just another artist to learn how to do public art, because public art has this catch-22. I don't know if you're familiar with public art commissions across, nationally and internationally. They kind of want somebody that has the experience in public art, but you can't get the experience unless you get a commission.
Right.
So like there's that catch-22, right? So in terms of that, like I'm really proud of the city of Austin and AIPP bringing those opportunities for artists to dip their toes and figure out how to do public art, because it is such a strange, rigid thing, and you're asking artists to be creative and bring innovation to it, right? So it's that dichotomy of rigid government rules and creative artists.
Well, ironically, it's some of the only art that we can safely see these days.
Yeah.
So I would think it would take on even greater significance in the midst of a pandemic. Eyes Got It, the wonderful, still ongoing art competition that you created 2010, and you've had it nearly every year.
Yeah.
So talk about that, please.
Yeah, again, like I said, all these things sort of happen at the same time, and they just like build on each other. Um, so I think by the time Eyes Got It rolled around, I had already stopped writing reviews, but I was doing criticism, or I was doing curatorial projects. And so even though I was not writing, I still saw the need for criticism, right? That's something that artists need. There's artists that have not gone to school, and so they don't really know the experience of crits, right? Within a classroom setting, or even just getting feedback from like a studio visit. So what was that first year? 2010, I think that's the first year.
Yes, right.
I was approached by Pump Project. Deborah Brose was there at the time, and she's like, "Hey, I've got some space on the calendar if you want to curate a show."
Hmm.
And I didn't really have an idea for a show, so I passed. I was like, "No, thanks. I appreciate it, but I don't think I can do it right now." And then that was the summer that Bravo's Work of Art came out on TV on cable. And I didn't have cable, so I never saw it. But I was reading. That was the time when blogs were big, and so I was just reading all these art blogs, writing reviews about the show.
Right.
And I was just like, that's such a contrived way of finding an artist, of finding the next great artist, like giving them homework, giving them assignments.
Yeah.
And so I was like, again, I was like, I could do better than this. I can, the right way to do this is this way. And I floated that idea by Rebecca Marino. I think she was a student at the time, but she became involved with Pump Project. Now she's at Texas State. But I told her my idea. She was like, "Yeah, you should do it." And I told my wife the idea, and my wife was like, "Yeah, you should do it. Sounds like a good idea." And so those were like the two things that I needed, like validation from the art world and validation from my wife. And so it happened. I was like, okay, I got to do it now. So I went back to Deborah, and I was like, "Deborah, I have an idea, but I need like a couple of weeks to make sure that I can do it." And so the deadline to apply for East Austin Studio Tour that year was like right around the corner. Managed to get in contact with Shay, and I was like, "Shay, I have this idea of holding a competition. Can this be part of the East Austin Studio Tour?" And he's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, I just need to find my judges. So as long as I can find my judges, then it'll happen." And I put a call out to Risa Puleo, who was a curator at the Blanton at the time. Sterling Allen, who was one of the artists at OK Mountain, and who was my third? Oh, Rachel Coper. Rachel Coper was the director at Gallery Lombardi. And I asked them, and they all said yes. And so I go back to Shay. I was like, "Shay, I got my judges. It's gonna happen. Can you help me with getting submissions in?" And he did. He let me use what big medium we was using for the East tours. Let me use that for I've Got It. And then I go back to Deborah, and I'm like, "Deborah, I've got it. I'm gonna do this competition. I'm gonna find one artist, and that artist is gonna get the solo show. That's gonna happen at Pump Project." And so I got that to work. And so that all pretty happened in a flurry. But I continued to do it because it was, like I said, I was thinking about criticism. I wanted to provide that feedback for artists. And even though I sort of introduced this as a competition, it wasn't really a competition. It really was just a series of criticism sessions. And so round one was just like a yes, no, like so we can quickly cull through the applicants, because that that first year we had like, I don't know, 60, 70.
Wow.
So I needed to find a way to cut it down pretty fast. And so it was just like, judges just give them a yes or no. I'll score them. And then the second round is supposed to be the judges talking about the top 10.
Mm.
And they're supposed to, plus or minuses, pros and cons. And then they select the top 3. The top 3 are supposed to be like a studio visit. It's the artist with their work and the judges. And that all happens in one night. So, but like I said, it was just different levels of criticism. It's like, do you make the first cut? Yes or no? We're going to talk about you in the second round. Do you make this cut? Yes or no? And then the final one is like actually looking at the artwork, actually giving the artist the opportunity to respond to whatever the judges say. And then the judges decide who they think should get a solo show. The first year was the solo show was at Pump Project. Like I said, that whole thing, that's what started it, right? That discussion with Pump. But then the next year, I felt like Pump Project was great, but if you're an artist and you submitted an exhibition proposal to Pump Project, you could get your own solo show there. So I wanted to up the ante on that prize, right? Because that was the grand prize. And Jill Schroeder at Grey Duck had just opened. And so I approached her and I was like, hey, like, what do you think of this idea? Would you be interested in being the grand prize? I don't know who the artist would be, so it's kind of a gamble. Totally okay. She's like, well, I can maybe do it in the summer. I was like, that's totally fine. Doing it in August when nobody's in town. Do it for 2 weeks, like whatever. As long as I can say the grand prize is the solo show in a gallery, in a commercial gallery, like that was it for me. And Jill agreed to it, and we've been in partnership ever since. And she's been awesome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then it became not just providing feedback for artists, but also those exhibition opportunities. Because even after the first year, we identified that one artist for the solo show, but then because I was doing all the back end stuff, I was looking at all these artists like, I haven't seen these artists before, and this work is great. Like,
Wow.
there's no reason they shouldn't be seen. So I surprised them and I said, hey, I want to do a group show with y'all, and that's where Group Hug came from.
Okay.
And so so I took them, and they, at the time, Pump Project had the 2 sites. So the solo show was in Pump, and then the group show was in Satellite, which Rebecca was, I think that at that point Rebecca started running that space. So I was able to have the solo show, which was the grand prize, and then as a consolation prize, the group hug show, where other artists that made it up there and that I thought were great, that are able to show their work as well.
Has that continued throughout the history of?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Which actually reminds me, I need to organize the group hug for this last round.
Oh God. All right. I don't want us to run out of time, but let's get to what you're doing now. You are the chair of the Arts Commission of Austin. It's like everything you've been doing has been leading to this moment, with your familiarity with Austin and its needs and its art world and all that. So tell us about that experience. You've been on that commission since 2015, I think. Started representing District 2.
Yeah, it's been 5
Southeast
years already.
Austin. Yeah, and now you're chair.
Yeah.
So tell us about the 2 different experiences as District 2 rep and then as chair.
It's kind of hard to separate the 2.
Oh, okay.
Because I am in District 2. That, like, the reason I'm on the commission is because I had just was wrapping up my term limits on AIPP. AIPP, you can serve for 3 terms, and each term is a 2-year appointment. So I was at 6 years. I maxed out. That last year I was the chair of AIPP. And that last year was when City Council instituted 10-1, right? The 10 council districts plus the mayor. So we had a bunch of fresh council members on the council, and they started looking at these budgets for the art projects out at the airport, and they're like, this is a lot of money to go to art. Like I need money for my health. I'm forgetting the name of them, but you know, I need money for these other things for my communities. And that's a lot of money going towards art that's just going to sit there in the airport. And so as chair of AIPP, I went up in front of council and I was like, look, we're following the city ordinance, 2% of art, 2% of capital improvement projects going to art. That money needs to stay, you know, as it's written, that money needs to stay near the construction project. And the city of Austin is actually a leader in public art. Like every year it gets nominated for public art projects. You know, we have 2% where other municipalities have only 1% program. We, you know, like I said, we had already started the Temple project. We're introducing opportunities for emerging artists. So anyways, I did my spiel in front of council. It's like you can't just like squash this project. Like it needs to move forward. It needs to support artists in Austin because that's what we're doing. And so after that, I was like, we need people that understand these processes to advocate for artists. And I had a feeling that in district, you know, most artists live in District 3, District 1. You know, most artists live on the east side. And I was like, I live in District 2. I have this experience. I'm pretty sure there are not many other artists in this town. So I'm gonna see if Councilmember Garza would be interested in having me on the Arts Commission. I reached out, her office, you know, nominated me, and I got nominated and appointed to the Arts Commission. And you asked me about the two separate, right? Being a commissioner from District 2 and being chair, and I say it's difficult because although I'm aware of sort of the need for art or the arts needs in District 2, and the lack of sort of opportunities as compared to other areas of the city, I feel like I have not been able to properly address those or advocate for those because I've been so involved with the overarching cultural needs of the city as a chair, like making sure that, you know, last year when there was a plateau and it affected the funding, and so like then we have to go do this whole cultural funding review, and then now with the pandemic and just like all these things, just like big issues that yeah, we just need to address these larger issues, and I feel like I haven't really been properly advocating for District 2, but yeah, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't see how it would be avoidable. I just, because of the nature of losing venues even before the pandemic and all, I mean, really the arts are besieged in a sense, even before COVID, and now more than ever. So, and as the chair of the commission, of course, you have to think of the whole city. But I remember you once told me, you know, that like Dove Springs and other areas of Southeast Austin, that you really wanted to bring more arts to the area and all that. And as long as you keep that in mind, I think you're going to succeed. It just may not be as quickly as you had hoped. That's an old man talking. Right?
oh no, yeah, working
Right.
with the city, I was patient before, but it's been tempered even more.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know if we have any questions from people. Where's the chat thing? Let's see. No, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any
I don't see.
questions.
Okay, well then we can go on. All right, which is what I'd hoped for. All right, let's see. All right, in between some of this generous art, the Curatorial Board, along with all these other things that you've been doing. To talk about, that's Jennifer Chenoweth, right?
Yeah.
Who used to be my neighbor, like 2 blocks. I live on Willow and she was on 2nd, but now she's left the neighborhood, probably for the same reasons that Gently Fried exhibit was so important. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
Tell us about what the generous art is all
So generous art was the brainchild, was the organization founded by Jennifer Chenoweth.
about.
And the idea was that that artists are always being asked to donate their artwork to a fundraiser so that it could then be auctioned off and raise money, right? And usually in those fundraisers, when that art was donated, it would sell for a lower price point than what the artist would probably want to sell it for.
Right.
And so Jennifer came up with this structure where um, basically was brokering agreements with nonprofits and saying, you know, if you want to sell artist work, you know, there's the contract would be you sell it and 50% would go to the artist, sort of like a typical gallery deal. But then the remaining 50 would be split. I forgot exactly what the split was. It was something like 20% to the nonprofit that was fundraising, 20% to a nonprofit of the artist's choice, and then 5 or 10% going to generous art, sort of as just admin fees. So there was just that, like I said, they were brokering this relationship between nonprofits that needed to fundraise and artists, and then just making sure that the artist was able to donate to nonprofits of their choosing, just so that the love was being shared all around. And I knew Jennifer from my time at UT, right? She taught an entrepreneurial class, which I took. And so, you know, I had already spent time on AIPP, and so Jennifer was familiar with me, and she invited me to be part of this curatorial board, which was, you know, sort of responsible of making sure that the events that were held were, because there were different fundraising events, but there was like almost an open call, like a group exhibition for generous artists in the roster. So curating that, but also sort of giving direction to how new artists were added to the roster. Just making sure that, you know, that it was sort of following a process. Yeah, I worked on it for about 2 years, and then that's when I joined the Arts Commission, and I wasn't able to continue on that. And then after I brought Shay Little on to replace me, and after that, generous art sort of evolved into what is now known as Creative Standard.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Very good. Well, let's ask one final tough question. What will the Austin arts world look like in 2021?
2021.
Yes.
That's not far away.
No, I know. Exactly.
I think it's probably gonna look a lot like it is today. Maybe a little bit stronger. I think as more people get comfortable with going out again. But I feel like sort of what I'm seeing right now makes sense, that galleries being open by appointment, limiting the number of people in the space. So the art is still going to be made and still be exhibited, but there's still there will be that cautious return to going out to see the art. I think that'll affect theaters a little bit differently. Theaters, you know, they'll either have to do like online performances, which I'm seeing they're doing like Zoom performances, or you know, limited to just the performers on stage. You know, maybe some back end and maybe a few select seats in the house. But yeah, but it's going to be a cautious return. I think 2021 is still not far out enough that we can have a different vision of what it'll look like. Yeah, I think it'll look something like today. Hopefully a little bit stronger, a little bit better, more. We'll be able to see each other more.
Yes, exactly.
in person.
Without the screen, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I went to Bethlehem Makonen's exhibit at Big Medium. Is it 501 or what do they call? What's the exhibit space there at Canopy?
That's Big Medium's exhibition space.
Yeah, right. That's where. So I saw her exhibit a few weeks ago, thanks to Big Medium, and I love Bethlehem Makonen's work. This
Yeah.
is the one about time from the point of view of rocks, and it gives us a much broader view, so we're not stuck in this awful present.
Yeah.
So, and I, of course, I was the only person there by appointment. And in a selfish kind of way, it was wonderful. But I don't know how venues can survive like that. I mean, it would have been fine with me if there were 3 or 4 other people in that space. So it's going to be a process of learning, I think, for both of us, the viewer and the artist and the venue. So
Yeah.
I think I have some hope. I don't for theaters, not right away.
Right. No, it's definitely going to be a more deliberate decision. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm out on a Saturday afternoon. Let me just drop in this gallery. Like
Exactly.
It's definitely more deliberate.
Which actually has its positive side too. It's like, I mean, I was so happy to be looking at art, at things that Bethlehem had created.
Yeah.
Rather than through the screen. Okay. Well, anything, I still have 2 or 3 more pages of questions, but I think I've learned so much from you. I really have enjoyed this so much. And we don't have a bunch of other people talking while we're trying to talk to each other.
Yeah. Do you want to like put a call out in for another question, maybe? Like see if anybody wants to.
Yeah, right. If anybody has any questions, let's see, Q&A, nothing there. Chat, nothing there. Yeah, if anybody out there has any questions, type in the chat area or the Q&A. And there's 20 people out there, so
A lot of
speak
familiar
up.
names. Hey, everybody. I did want to point out, as you were asking me about my role on the commission,
Right.
the coffee chat that was done with Alberto Mejia. I think he brings a lot of good information in terms of what the city is doing, in terms of supporting arts organizations and artists in town. So I would encourage folks to check that coffee chat out in the archive.
Okay. In the archive. Okay.
Yeah.
Alberto Mejia.
Yep.
All right. Good. Okay. Coca asks, can you tell us about the new show? Which new
Sure.
show is that? Okay, you know.
So yeah, so Los Outsiders were invited to curate a show at Grey Duck. Oh, I forgot to point that out. Like, yeah, I brought Robert in to replace me, because I wanted to serve on the Arts Commission without any issues, right? There's no conflicts of interest, no nothing. Like that's why I stopped serving on Generous Art Board and I dropped, or I quit Los Outsiders, but they brought me back. They pulled me back in.
Oh,
They're like, let's just do this quick show.
right.
And so we went back to like the question that you asked me about what the mission of Los Outsiders was, and we're like, we want to provide opportunities for artists, and so we said, like, let's find artists that we really enjoy, artists of color that you don't usually, they don't usually get the exhibition opportunities, and yes, we were able to find 5 artists that, like I said, we were just throwing out artists that we loved, but as we were doing studio visits, we came to learn, like, they had this like wonderful connection, that they all had this reflection not of being lonely, of these times in quarantine, of like, it just this self-reflection and communing with nature. It was just like, it was amazing how it just all came together serendipitously, right? We just threw out random names and we're like, yeah, we love these artists, and then they just happened to have that thread running through their work. And so, yeah, kind of like how you described Betty's show at Big Medium, like these, I was able to see the final layout. And then the works are beautiful, and you can just, you'll have the time to just look at them, enjoy them. But they're also, they allow for that meditative space and contemplate, and yeah, it's a really nice show.
Okay. Is the show that was Outsiders, is that at Grey Duck right now or soon?
Yeah, so it opens tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
and it runs through November. I'm forgetting the exact date, but it basically the month of October.
Okay. So it opens tomorrow, but there will be no opening in the sense of 100 people drinking and talking with each other.
Right. I mean, there might be a secret party in the back parking lot. I don't know. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. There's not.
No. Okay. All right. Coca has put some links up there, and yeah, and it's called Capirotada, the show at the Grey Duck, right?
Capirotada of a personal nature.
Exactly. Bread pudding never really satisfactorily describes what capirotada is.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Many different elements. All right. Let's see. There are other people. Yeah. Okay. Grey Duck Gallery. It's here online. So there are links in the chat area there. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Actually, Charlie, what about you? Like, I should have asked you this at the beginning to introduce yourself.
No need. I just had my 78th birthday. I'm in the.
Hey, happy birthday.
Yeah, right. I always tell people it's like the oldest form of record, the 78 revolutions per minute, the RPM, the really breakable ones. I don't know why I'm saying all that. Okay. Yeah, I've been having friends over for takeout lunch on my front porch. So you're next. We have to do that at some point. I haven't invited anybody. Everybody my friends just contact me and tell me how about next week or whatever.
Yeah.
So we can continue this conversation while eating food from Garage Mahal and sitting on my porch. Because I've been living in East Austin since 1975. So it is more my home than any place else I've ever lived.
Yeah, and I think that's why I thought you would be great to interview me, because like you said at the beginning, like we've had snippets of conversations here and there, but you've been here a long time. You've been very active in the community, in the film community, and yeah, I just thought you would be great to sort of investigate my background a little bit better.
Yeah, right. Well, I really learned a great deal, and I really appreciate being invited to do this. It was a very pleasant email. I had no idea what it was going to be leading to.
Yeah. All
right. And thanks to Big Medium for doing this, for sure, to Coca and Ethan.
Yeah. And, thanks, yeah. So, I need to give Big Medium a hard time. That is not the photo that I provided for y'all to promote this event.
I know, I'm sorry, but this one it's better, and there's two of you.
I would not say it's better. That's why I'm giving you a hard time.
Next time I'll double check with you.
No, I'm joking. You know, y'all do great work. I just needed to give them a hard time.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. I really enjoyed listening to y'all talk and yeah, just tell all the story and all the Austin just see like behind the scenes kind of story. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Anything else from you? Anything else you want to pick?
Megan Shogun says it is a cool photo, and Carlos Carrillo says thanks for the coffee chat. Lacey, Richter, gracias. Congrats to both of you.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad there were people out there.
Thanks for being here, y'all. Appreciate it.
And a love from Kevin Munoz, the heart.
Yeah.
Okay. And whoop whoop from Robert Jackson. Okay. This is exciting. This is like election returns or something. Be sure to vote November 3rd.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Yeah. Thanks again, everybody.
We'll continue this another time. Jaime
Yeah. All right.
Salvador. All right. Bye.
Bye.